To understand the tragedy that unfolded on the pavement of Richland County, South Carolina, we must first look at the two wildly different lives that were destined to collide at a lonely intersection on Park Lane Road. In May of 2023, Cyrus Carmack-Belton was just 14 years old. Standing 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighing a mere 114 pounds, he was a local African-American teenager navigating the challenges of adolescence in Columbia. He was a son, a student, and a face well known to his neighborhood, a kid whose entire future lay ahead of him. Less than a mile from where Cyrus grew up sat the Express Mart Shell convenience store. The storefront was operated by 61-year-old Rick Chow, an Asian-American immigrant business owner. For over 12 years, Rick Chow and his family anchored themselves on this corner, managing the day-to-day operations of a high-traffic urban gas station. But behind Chow's quiet entrepreneurial exterior lay a history of hypervigilance. He was a licensed concealed weapons permit holder who viewed his business not just as a livelihood, but as a fortress that required constant, aggressive defense, a mindset that had already brought him into contact with law enforcement multiple times over the decade.
Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe now. Let's get back to the video.
Chapter 2. The Convenience Store Flashpoint. The cross-section of these two lives occurred on Sunday evening, May 28, 2023, at approximately 8:00 p.m. Security surveillance cameras from inside the Express Mart capture the interior illuminated by harsh fluorescent lighting. A store clerk wearing a blue shirt with the numbers 515 printed across the back stands by the counter, surrounded by stacked inventory boxes. At exactly 23 p.m., Cyrus Carmack-Belton enters the storefront. He is wearing a bright red pullover, hoodie, dark pants, and a black backpack. The surveillance video tracks him as he walks down the beverage aisle. He reaches out, pulls 4 commercial water bottles from the cooler, and slides them into his backpack. But then a critical choice is made. Before approaching the register, Cyrus stops, reaches into his bag, and places all 4 water bottles back onto the store shelf. He has decided not to take them. He is entirely empty-handed. Yet behind the counter, suspicion has already hardened into certainty. As Cyrus moves toward the exit, a tense and rapid verbal escalation erupts near the checkout counter. The audio from the store's microphone captures the raw friction of the moment as Cyrus fiercely defends himself against an aggressive accusation regarding his legal status, shouting back, "I don't got no warrant in my pocket, bro. I'll show you." Before the misunderstanding can be cleared, Cyrus turns and flees into the parking lot. Believing a theft has occurred, Rick Chow and his adult son, Andy Chow, abandon the safety of their counter, bypassing the clerk in the 515 shirt, and charge out of the glass storefront in immediate armed pursuit. Chapter: The 130-yard pursuit. What began as a groundless shoplifting assumption instantly exploded into a high-stakes foot chase that spilled off commercial property and directly into the residential avenue of Springtree Drive. Forensic maps and crime scene diagrams later illustrated the sheer velocity of the flight. Cyrus was running in absolute terror, moving so fast that he literally ran completely out of his sneaker, dropping his cellular phone and his black backpack onto the grassy shoulder as he fled. Behind him, closing the gap, were the store owner and his son. The chase continued down the dark asphalt for more than an entire professional football field. At the 130-yard mark, a single sharp handgun shot shattered the neighborhood quiet. Cyrus collapsed onto the pavement. The official autopsy report by Richland County coroner Nadia Rutherford would later deliver a devastating forensic reality. The fatal bullet entered the lower right side of the 14-year-old's back. The trajectory was entirely consistent with a child who was actively running away from his shooter. To a horrified community, it appeared to be a brutal execution over nothing more than water bottles, and Rick Chow was swiftly arrested and charged with murder. Chapter 4. The Verdict. The legal reckoning reached its climax 3 years later, on June 1, 2026. Inside a heavily divided Richland County courthouse. For days, the state had argued that the moment Rick Chow chose to grab his gun and give chase, he became the unlawful aggressor. Following 8 hours of intense, agonizing deliberation, The jury returned to a silent courtroom. The official verdict form was handed down, signed and validated by the jury foreperson, designated as juror number 302. The clerk read the decision aloud. Chikei Rick Chow was found not guilty of murder. As the words echoed through the room, every single juror was polled one by one, and 12 times, twice each, they affirmed their decision without a single waiver. Legally, Rick Chow was cleared of criminal liability. But while Chow sat silently, slowly bowing his head into his interlocked hands, a wave of profound weeping and emotional distress tore through the gallery where Cyrus's family sat. Chapter: The Excluded Evidence and the Pivot to Understand. How a case that seemed so clear to the public ended in a total acquittal. One must look at the hidden architecture of the trial. Under South Carolina law, a murder trial is bound by strict rules of evidence. In pre-trial hearings, the defense successfully argued to suppress Rick Chow's past interactions with law enforcement. The jury was kept completely blind to what the community already knew. They never heard that years prior, Chow had shot a suspected shoplifter at his store. They never heard that in a separate incident, he had opened fire on a fleeing vehicle. They never knew that in 2021, the Richland County Sheriff's Department took the extraordinary step of bringing Chow to headquarters to formally lecture him on the strict legal limits of deadly force. Because he was never convicted in those self-defense cases, the law dictated the jury must judge the night of May 28th in a total vacuum. This evidentiary wall allowed the defense to execute a massive tactical pivot. They shifted the focus from water bottles to a terrifying reality discovered in the grass of Springtree Drive. 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack-Belton was carrying a fully loaded black Taurus 9mm semi-automatic pistol with a live round chambered and an underbarrel tactical laser sight. Taking the witness stand, the owner's son, Andy Chow, delivered the testimony that ultimately anchored the defense's theory. He claimed that as Cyrus tripped and fell, the teen pulled the heavy weapon from his hoodie pocket and pointed the tactical laser directly at his chest. Andy testified he screamed out, "He's got a gun! He's got a gun!" before his father fired the single fatal shot. Under state law, a person is legally justified in using lethal force if they possess a reasonable fear of imminent death or great bodily injury to themselves or to a third party. The jury ultimately found that Rick Chow fired not to protect property, but to save his son's life. Chapter: A Mother's Grief and the Streets of Chaos.
But when I go and I look at my social media, I have racist people coming to my page, going under my son's pictures, leaving the most horrific things, saying that they're glad he's dead, good riddance, and I am tired. I don't want this to happen to any other child. No black or brown child should have to go through this. No parent should have to go through this. This has to stop today. And I just learned today that South Carolina, if it's a murder charge, that they cannot bring in any of your prior acts. Rick Chow shot 2 people before. Rick Chow accosted a child in that store and beat her up with a gun on her hip. And none of that information could be brought to light. And I do not think that is fair, and if that is on the law books, that needs to be changed. Because if that was not there, then my son would have gotten justice. And to allow this person to terrorize this neighborhood for 12, 13 years is ridiculous. And it's just showing that it's okay to treat black and brown people wrong, and it's not.
The legal finality of June 1st did nothing to quell the agonizing human cost of this case. Following the acquittal, Cyrus's mother stepped forward to deliver a blistering public address, exposing a campaign of targeted online racial harassment. Strangers were actively invading her personal social media profiles, leaving malicious comments under pictures of her late 14-year-old son, stating they were glad he was dead and writing "good riddance." Her voice carried the weight of both a grieving parent and a community locked out of the justice system as she summarized over a decade of systemic frustration with a single, haunting indictment. To allow this person to terrorize this neighborhood for 12, 13 years is ridiculous. Outside the courthouse doors, that verbal anguish manifested as physical rebellion. Absolute chaos erupted on the public sidewalks. Intense physical altercations broke out between devastated citizens, primarily black women, and lines of local law enforcement officers. Handheld cameras captured the raw panic as bodies clashed against riot lines. Screams echoed through the streets as bystanders yelled, "Get off her!" and frantic cries for 911 filled the air. Protesters pushed back against the officers, shouting, "Why are you touching me? I'm not hitting you, sir. Move." To regain control and break the perimeter, law enforcement officers deployed chemical agents, spraying mace and pepper spray directly into the faces of the dense crowd to forcefully disperse the protesting citizens. The criminal trial of Rick Chow is over, ending in an acquittal that will be studied and debated for a generation. But with a civil wrongful death lawsuit being immediately revived by the family's attorneys, the ashes of this 130-yard chase continue to smolder, leaving a city deeply fractured, a family enduring unceasing torment, and a community wrestling with the heavy unresolved price of a misunderstanding. To watch the exact moment the final decision was handed down in the courtroom, you can view the Rick Chow not guilty murder trial verdict. This video provides the direct archival footage of the jury reading the acquittal and the resulting emotional reaction from the courtroom.
The jury unanimously find the defendant, Chikei Rick Chow, as to the charge of murder, not guilty. Signed number 302, foreperson, June the 1st, 2026. Madam Forelady, was this your verdict and the verdict of the entire jury?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Thank you. Madam Forelady and ladies and gentlemen,
Subscribe to this YouTube channel to stay tuned on today's Red Stories. Until next time.